When it comes to being successful in heart rate training as a runner, there are few things as important to being disciplined enough to keep your heart rate in check. Whether you're doing the Patron method where you've got your MAF zone and you're just trying to stay underneath that limit, whether you're doing more of a zone approach where you're trying to stay in zone 2 the vast majority of the time, either way, one of the big keys, maybe the biggest key to your success and your progress, both near term and especially in the big picture with doing heart rate training, is being disciplined enough to keep your heart rate where it needs to be. Some days, maybe every day, that can be a lot easier said than done. But the fact of the matter is that you're in control. You have the ability to slow down, maybe even walk some to keep your heart rate in check. The key is being disciplined enough to humble yourself, to not worry about your ego, to not worry about pace, and slow down and keep your heart rate in check. Easier said than done? Yes, absolutely, but it's possible. In today's video, we're going to look at 3 ways that you can kind of help support yourself on the discipline front to stay on track with your heart rate training. The sad truth when it comes to discipline is that we have nobody to blame when we struggle to adhere to the principles of heart rate training other than ourselves. When I have a run where my heart rate gets a little bit too high, it stays a little bit too high, I can't blame anybody else. I can't blame running partners. I can't blame the running community at large. I can only blame myself for not being disciplined enough to back it down, slow down, and keep my heart rate in check. So you've got to bring your own discipline to the table if you're going to commit to heart rate training. That said, you're not all on your own. It's not like we're all out there on an island. There are ways to increase your chances of staying disciplined, to keep your heart rate in the zone where we need it to be to see progress towards your longer term running goals. The first thing I want to talk about today to help you be more disciplined and keep your heart rate in check as a heart rate training athlete is to potentially change the metrics by which you keep track of your run. Now, I'm not talking about ignoring your heart rate because that would kind of defeat the purpose here. I'm actually talking about maybe the most common metric we have as runners is distance. How far did we go today? Maybe the second most common metric that we look at is pace. Maybe they're 1A and 1B. Maybe for you, you're the type of runner, and Lord knows I've been there myself, where it's all about how far did I go, what was my pace. And while focusing on those metrics, you might be trying to be disciplined with keeping your heart rate in check, but at the same time, you're struggling because you're trying to get to a certain mileage marker. Maybe you're struggling with slowing down and keeping your pace in check. You've got to finish a certain distance in a certain amount of time to get ready for work, to get on with your day, whatever the case may be. And that can make it really hard to stay disciplined with keeping your heart rate down. If you switch your metric to time, where you just say, today I'm going to go out and run for whatever, 45 minutes, an hour, however long that you have available for you, and you don't worry about pace, and you don't worry about distance. You just run, if it's an hour, you run 30 minutes out and 30 minutes back. That way there's no mad dash to the finish to try to get certain mileage markers in a certain amount of time. You know you've got an hour, boom, 30 minutes, or whatever the case might be. And that can be a big piece of the puzzle to not worry about whether you get to 6 miles or 6.5 miles, or you get to 5 miles. Whatever it is, you ran your hour, on with your day, no stress about going a little bit too fast. Admittedly, that doesn't work for everybody, but I have seen success with changing the focus from mileage to just time on feet, duration of run with some of the athletes I coach, and maybe that will work for you. We've got 2 more things that we're going to look at today, and we will get to those right after this quick break. Could you use a little more running in your life? Of course you could. We all could. We are runners. This is kind of what we do, maybe to the point of obsession. And if you haven't checked out Diz Runs Radio, my podcast yet, what are you waiting for? There's only over 1,000 episodes back catalog, so you got some catching up to do, or you can just dive into where we are today and just pick up from here. I'll let it slide. So check out Diz Runs Radio on your favorite podcast platform of choice. Let me know what you think about it after a few episodes. But now let's go ahead and get back to today's video. Another way to help beef up your discipline and keep your heart rate in check as a heart rate training athlete is to utilize technology, utilize all the alerts, especially those alerts on your watch. So you've got your heart rate strap, right? you do have your heart rate strap, right? You're not just relying on this. You're using the strap. Yes, yes, good. And you've got it synced to your watch so that you can check on your numbers. But one thing that I hate to do as a runner is to be a slave to my watch all the time. Always glancing down, always checking on maybe on distance, maybe on pace, certainly on heart rate, and trying to keep that in check at every point throughout my run. So if you haven't already set up alerts on your watch, do so. Most running watches of all the different brands out there have the alert function where you can set your parameters of your run, and anytime your heart rate gets out of a zone or even gets closer to the high end of your zone or gets closer to your MAF limit, it'll alert you. And sometimes you can, just having it set to vibrate will work. Sometimes you need to have it beep and bark and yell at you. If you could get a watch, it would be like,
"Hey, dummy, slow down."
That would be awesome. Now, I know that you can, because I've done this a few times, kind of just ignore the alerts, just kind of blow through, not even worry about it, especially if you just have it set to vibrate. But at least when you have an alert go off and inform you that your heart rate is getting closer to the upper limit of your zone, you would then have to at least make the decision to ignore it, which hopefully is enough to keep you on track, keep you disciplined, and keep your heart rate below your upper limits. Last but not least, on the list of things for today's episode of ways to increase your discipline and help you stick with your heart rate training guidelines that you've set for yourself is to outsource some of the discipline, aka think about hiring a coach. And as a coach that is all in on heart rate training, maybe you might think about hiring me. Yeah, sure, this might be a little bit self-serving because I coach for a living. This is kind of what I do for my job. But at the same time, having that outside perspective, having that person that you know is going to be looking over your shoulder, going to be checking in on your data, might help you to actually, be disciplined enough to stick with your heart rate zones. If you're struggling to bring enough self-discipline to the table, it's also possible to, bring in some discipline from the outside world, hire a coach, or just even work with an accountability partner. Maybe there's another runner that you know, whether online or in person, that is struggling the same way that you are. You can connect, share data, and really hold each other accountable. But definitely having that outside perspective, coach or otherwise, can really help you stay locked in, stay focused, and be disciplined in staying within your heart rate training limits. So there we have it, 3 ways to help boost your discipline, keep your heart rate in the appropriate zones, and ultimately help you become more successful as an athlete that has embraced the philosophies behind heart rate training. First thing, set time as your metric. Don't worry about distance, don't worry about pace. Number 2 on the list, utilize your technology to set all the alerts. And last but not least, getting that outside perspective, maybe in the form of a coach. So there you have it, a few thoughts for today to help you become a more disciplined runner, a more disciplined athlete. Keep doing the work, keep your heart rate in check, and you will keep seeing the progress. Have any questions for me, hit me up down in the comments. And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, hey, don't be afraid to do so. But until next time, keep putting in the work, keep staying disciplined, and we'll talk again soon.